The silence in the desert is a lie. It isn't empty. It's full, full of the things no one else wants to hear. The sigh of the wind over sand, a sound like 1,000 forgotten ghosts. The skittering of a beetle's legs, tiny and desperate. The slow, grinding pulse of the earth itself, a heartbeat so deep it's felt more in the bones than in the ears. Elara knows these sounds. She has catalogued them, befriended them. They are the symphony of her exile. Her small research outpost is a sterile box dropped into the middle of this raw, untamed world, metal and glass, and filtered air. A fortress against the heat, the dust, and the memories that stalk her like coyotes. Sound. Everything is white and gray and ruthlessly organized. Her books on desert xerophytes are alphabetized. Her geological samples are labeled with a precision that borders on obsession, control. It's the only thing she has left. A small, pathetic kingdom of order in the vast chaos of her own life. The memory comes, as it always does, in the quiet moments just before the sun bleeds out across the horizon. It's not a flood, but a single, sharp icicle to the heart. The doctor's office. The smell of antiseptic and false hope. The word he used. Barren. A word from another century. A word for soil that will not grow. A tree that will not fruit. A word for her. Then Mark, his face. A mask of careful, curated pity. I want a family, Elara. A real family. Sons to carry on my name. He didn't shout. He never shouted. His cruelty was always quiet, delivered with the calm precision of a surgeon's scalpel. He'd made it sound so reasonable, so logical. As if she were a faulty appliance, he was returning, with regrets, but with a firm belief in the warranty. He had looked at her, at the woman he'd claimed to love for 7 years, and seen only a deficit, an emptiness, a failure. So she ran. She ran here, to the great empty basin of the Mojave, a place as barren as her own body, a place where nothing was expected to grow. She thought she might find a strange sort of kinship in the desolation. But the desert, she's learning, is not barren at all. It's fiercely, stubbornly alive. Every spined cactus, every nocturnal hunter, every hardy flower that blooms for a single, defiant day after a rain, they all fight. They all cling to life with a tenacity that shames her. Tonight, the air is different. It's heavy, charged. The usual symphony is muted, replaced by a low, expectant hum. A storm is coming. Not a cleansing rain, but a dry, violent thing of wind and lightning, the kind that scours the land and leaves it raw. She checks the latches on the windows, a familiar ritual, locks the door. The outpost is a self-sufficient marvel, solar-powered, with its own water reclamation system. It can withstand anything the desert throws at it. It's her own heart that feels fragile. She makes tea, the steam ghosting against the cool glass of the window. Outside, the world is fading to a deep, bruised purple. The first gust of wind hits the station with a metallic shriek, like a great bird of prey scraping its talons across the roof. Dust devils dance in the distance, ghostly whirling dervishes. She watches them, mesmerized. They are chaos made visible. A flicker of lightning illuminates the landscape in a stark, momentary photograph. Sand, rock, creosote bush, and something else. Something at the edge of her property line, near the low stone wall that marks the boundary between her small patch of order and the wilderness. She squints, her heart giving a sudden, stupid lurch. Probably just a tumbleweed, or a trick of the light. This place plays games with the eyes. Another flash of lightning, closer this time. It's not a tumbleweed. It's a shape, low to the ground, and it's moving. No, not moving, struggling. Her breath catches. A coyote? A mountain lion? They usually stay far away, deterred by the scent of human habitation. Her training, her carefully constructed logic, kicks in. Do not engage. Observe, from a distance. You are not equipped to handle injured wildlife. You are a botanist, For God's sake. The wind howls. A mournful, angry sound. It throws a sheet of sand against the window with a sound like 1,000 tiny fists. She should turn away, go back to her tea, put on some music to drown out the storm. This is not her problem. She came here to be left alone, and to leave everything else alone. A pact of mutual indifference. But she remembers a different kind of indifference. The cool, polite dismissal in a doctor's eyes. The placid finality in a lover's voice. The feeling of being seen, assessed, and discarded as something not worth saving. Her hand goes to the lock on the door. This is stupid. This is reckless. This is everything she came here to escape. Another bolt of lightning cracks the sky open, and in that brutal, blue-white glare, she sees it clearly. It's a wolf, a massive desert wolf, its coat the color of sand and dusk, and it's not alone. It's curled around something small, a bundle. Her mind refuses to process it for a second. It's impossible. It makes no sense. The wolf lifts its head, and even from this distance, she can see the exhaustion, the desperation. It's not a threat. It's a plea. It's dragging itself, pulling the bundle with it, toward her light, toward her door. Her throat is tight. The carefully built walls of her solitude, her safety, are crumbling. Compassion, the stupid, traitorous emotion she has tried so hard to starve, is rising up in her like a flood tide. They will die out there. The storm will tear them apart, or bury them in sand. They came to her, to the only light for 100 miles. And she, who knows better than anyone what it feels like to be left out in the storm, cannot turn away. Damn it, she whispers to the howling wind, her voice swallowed by the noise. Damn it all. She unlocks the door. The wind rips the heavy door from her grasp, slamming it back against the wall with a deafening crash. Sand and grit immediately invade her sterile sanctuary, stinging her eyes, coating her tongue. She fights her way onto the small porch, leaning into the gale, her hair whipping violently across her face. The wolf is closer now, maybe 50 feet away. It sees her. Its head is low, but its eyes seven in the swirling chaos. She can see its eyes. They are not the flat, feral eyes of a wild animal. They are intelligent, aware, and filled with a pain so profound it steals her breath. It whines, a low, guttural sound that is nearly lost in the wind, but it carries to her with an impossible clarity, a sound of utter desperation. Logic screams at her. A wolf, a potentially rabid, certainly dangerous apex predator is crawling toward her home, and it has something with it. Her mind still shies away from the truth of the bundle it protects. But the logic is drowned out by a stronger, more primal voice, the voice of her own history. No one came for me. No one opened the door. She pulls the collar of her jacket up, bracing herself against the sand-blasting wind, and takes a step off the porch, then another. The ground is unsteady beneath her feet. The air is thick with the electric smell of ozone and disturbed earth. The wolf stops moving. It watches her approach, its body tense. It is a guardian. Even in its agony, it is protecting the bundle. As she gets closer, she can see the damage. Its side is a dark, matted mess. A deep gash runs along its flank, caked with sand and blood. Its breathing is a ragged, shallow rhythm. It's dying. It knows it's dying, and it has used the very last of its strength to get here. To her. Why? She stops a few feet away, holding her hands up, palms out, a gesture of peace, a gesture of surrender. I'm not going to hurt you, she says, her words torn away by the wind, but she says them anyway, for herself, for the animal. I want to help. The wolf's ears twitch. It seems to understand. With an immense, shuddering effort, it nudges the bundle forward with its nose, an offering, a desperate bargain. Her heart feels like it's going to beat its way out of her chest. She crouches down, her knees protesting as they sink into the cold sand. The bundle is wrapped in what looks like hand-woven, rough-spun cloth, It's small, impossibly small. With trembling fingers, she reaches out and pulls back a corner of the fabric. The wind chooses that moment to die down, creating a sudden, shocking pocket of silence. And in that silence, she hears it, a soft, snuffling sound. And she sees it. A face. A tiny, perfect human face. A baby. A baby. Out here, in the middle of a killer storm, with a dying wolf. The world tilts on its axis. Every rational thought in her head evaporates. This is not happening. This is a hallucination, a fevered dream brought on by loneliness and grief. But the baby stirs, its tiny mouth working, its brow furrowed in sleep. It is real. It is devastatingly, terrifyingly real. She looks from the infant's peaceful face to the wolf's tormented one. The animal's eyes are closing. Its great head sags onto the sand. A low, rattling sigh escapes its throat. The bargain is clear, to save the child. But she can't. She can't just take the baby and leave the wolf to die. They came together. Whatever insane story has led them to her doorstep, they are a unit. Her conscience, that raw and wounded part of her, will not allow her to separate them. It will not allow her to choose who is worthy of salvation. No, she whispers, a vow made to the storm and the sand. Not just one, both of you. A decision, a choice made against all reason. A choice to not be the person who calculates the odds, who weighs the worthiness of another living creature. She will be better than the world that broke her. Her first move is for the baby. She scoops the bundle up. It's lighter than she expects, and so warm. The warmth radiates through the cloth, a startling living heat against her cold hands. She tucks the child securely against her chest, shielding its face from the returning wind with her own body. The baby doesn't wake. It just snuggles deeper, seeking the heat. A pang, sharp and bittersweet, twists in her gut, the phantom ache of an empty womb. She shoves it down. Now is not the time for her ghosts. Now, the wolf. It's huge, far bigger than any coyote or standard gray wolf she's ever seen in textbooks. It must weigh well over 150 pounds. She's strong, wiry from her work, but there's no way she can lift it. Okay, she says aloud, her voice strained and thin. She's talking to herself, to the animal, to the uncaring universe. Okay, we have to be smart about this. In the small shed, attached to the outpost, is an emergency sled, a heavy-duty plastic thing she uses for hauling soil samples or heavy equipment. It's her only chance. Shielding the infant with one arm, she stumbles back toward the outpost, her mind racing. Get the sled. Get the first aid kit. Blankets. Water. Crossing the threshold back into her pristine home feels like a violation. She kicks the door shut behind her, the wind and sand now trapped inside with her. Her clean, orderly world is already contaminated. Good. Maybe it needs to be. She lays the baby gently in the center of her own bed, surrounded by pillows, creating a soft fortress. For a moment she just stares, her mind a maelstrom of fear and wonder. Then she moves. The sled is cumbersome. She drags it out of the shed, its plastic bottom scraping loudly against the concrete floor. She grabs the large, comprehensive medical kit her research grant insisted she keep. It's meant for humans, but it will have to do. Antiseptics, bandages, sutures. She throws in several old towels and a thermal blanket. Going back out into the storm is even harder the second time. The wind seems angrier, more personal. It fights her every step of the way as she drags the sled toward the dark shape on the sand. The wolf has not moved. She fears for a moment that she is too late. His breathing is almost imperceptible. Hey, she says, her voice soft as she kneels beside its massive head. I'm back. I'm going to help you. You just have to hold on. She places a hand, hesitantly, on its neck, behind its ear. The fur is coarse, thick with grit, but underneath it, the skin is hot with fever. A faint, thready pulse beats against her fingertips. He's still alive. Getting him onto the sled is a brutal, clumsy ordeal. It's a dead weight. She pushes and pulls, leveraging her entire body, her muscles screaming in protest. Sand gets into the wound, and the wolf lets out a pained, muffled cry that tears at her. "I'm sorry," she grunts, tears of exertion and emotion stinging her eyes. "I'm so sorry." Almost there. Finally, with one last desperate shove, the bulk of its body slides onto the plastic. She hauls on the rope, digging her heels into the shifting sand, dragging her impossible rescue toward the light. It feels like an hour, but it's probably only minutes. When she finally gets the sled over the threshold and into the house, she collapses against the closed door, her lungs burning, her body shaking with adrenaline and exhaustion. They are inside, all three of them. She has brought the storm, the wilderness, the chaos, into her sanctuary. The wolf lies on the sled in the middle of her living room floor, a wild, bleeding beast on the pale gray tiles. In the bedroom, a child she does not know sleeps in her bed. Her quiet, empty, ordered life is over. And as she looks at the two souls she has dragged in from the night, a strange, terrifying thought blooms in her chest. Thank God. The first few hours are a blur of frantic, focused activity, a war waged on two fronts: the baby, the wolf. She tends to the infant first. Logic dictates this. The child is more vulnerable. She unwraps the rough blankets, her hands surprisingly steady. It's a boy. He looks to be only a few weeks old. He is clean, healthy-looking, his skin soft and unblemished, save for a small, strange birthmark on his wrist, shaped almost like a crescent moon. There is nothing in his wrappings. No note. No clue. Just the baby himself. She finds some old, soft t-shirts and fashions a makeshift diaper. He needs to be fed. Her mind spins. What do you feed a baby in the middle of nowhere? She has no formula, no milk. Her own body, a source of such bitter failure, is useless. The irony is a fresh, sharp pain. Then she remembers the rehydration powders in the medical kit, electrolytes, and sugars. It's not ideal, not by a long shot, but it's better than nothing. She sterilizes a water bottle and mixes a weak solution, her movements precise and clinical, a stark contrast to the churning ocean of her emotions. The baby wakes as she works, his eyes opening. They are a startlingly deep, dark blue, like a twilight sky. He doesn't cry. He just watches her, his gaze unnervingly calm and intelligent. When she offers the bottle, he latches on immediately, suckling with a quiet determination. She sits on the edge of the bed, feeding this stranger's child, the silence of the room broken only by the sound of his drinking and the distant, fading howl of the storm. A feeling, fierce and protective, takes root in her heart. It is terrifying. It is wonderful. Once he is fed and settled back to sleep, she turns her attention to the wolf. She carefully pulls the sled into the main living area, away from her research equipment. She lays down old towels, creating a sterile field as best she can. She fills a basin with warm water. Kneeling beside him, she gets her first clear look at the injury. It's worse than she thought. Not a simple gash. It's a deep, ragged wound, almost like a tear. It's unnaturally clean of blood, as if the bleeding has somehow been staunched internally, but the tissue is mangled. What could have done this? A bear? A mountain lion? It looks more like something tore a piece of him away. She begins to clean the wound. Her hands, usually so steady when handling delicate plant specimens, tremble slightly. This is flesh and blood, a living, breathing creature. "This is going to hurt," she murmurs, more to herself than to him. "I'm sorry." As the warm cloth touches the raw edge of the wound, the wolf flinches violently. A low growl rumbles in his chest, a primal warning. His lips pull back from his teeth, long and white and deadly. Fear, cold and sharp, lances through her, as she freezes, her hand hovering over him. This is an animal, a wild thing. She is a fool. But then she looks at his eyes. They are open, focused on her face, and in their amber depths, she sees not aggression, but apology. The growl subsides into a pained whine. He is fighting his own instincts. He is letting her do this. He is trusting her. Okay, she breathes, her own fear receding. Okay, brave boy. We can do this. She works slowly, methodically, cleaning away the sand and debris, disinfecting the area. The smell of antiseptic mixes with the wild, musky scent of the wolf. He trembles under her touch, his muscles twitching with pain, but he remains still. He endures it. The wound is too deep to be left open. It needs stitches. Her stomach clenches. She has sutured before, in a veterinary first aid course she took for her fieldwork, but only on practice pads, never on something alive. She lays out the sterilized needle and suture thread. Her heart pounds a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She takes a deep breath, looks from the wound to the wolf's face. His eyes are still on her, unwavering, an island of calm focus, in a sea of pain. It's as if he's lending her his strength. Her first stitch is clumsy, hesitant. The needle pierces his skin. He shudders, a full-body tremor, but makes no sound, just that steady, trusting gaze. She finds her rhythm. Pierce, pull, knot, pierce, pull, knot. It is slow, meticulous work, an act of repair, an act of faith. The clean line of black thread, closing the terrible gap in his side, is a small victory against the chaos that brought him here. When she is finally done, her back is aching, and her hands are slick with sweat. The stitched wound is crude, but it is closed. She covers it with a large, sterile dressing, taping it carefully to his fur. Exhaustion hits her like a physical blow. She slumps back on her heels, the adrenaline fading, leaving a deep, bone-weary fatigue in its wake. She has done all she can do. Now, it's up to him. The wolf lets out a long, slow sigh. His head, which had been held rigid with pain, finally rests on the floor, his eyes close. He is not unconscious, she senses. He is resting, conserving his energy for the battle ahead. She drags herself to her feet and cleans up, moving like a zombie. She disposes of the bloody cloths, sterilizes her tools, restores a semblance of order to the room. But the room is forever changed. The wildness is now inside, the scent of it, the presence of it. Her sterile box now holds 2 heartbeats that are not her own. She doesn't return to her bed. She can't. The sleeping baby is a fragile miracle. She is afraid to disturb, and she cannot leave the wolf alone. So she pulls a chair close to where he lies. She sinks into it, pulling a blanket over her legs. She will watch over them. She will stand guard. In the strange, quiet hours of the deep night, with the storm finally spent, and a profound silence blanketing the desert, Alara sits vigil. She watches the slow, steady rise and fall of the wolf's stitched flank. She listens for the soft breathing of the baby in the other room. Her life, which had been a straight, predictable line, has fractured into 1,000 impossible pieces. And yet, for the first time in a very long time, she doesn't feel broken. She feels necessary. Days begin to bleed into one another, marked not by the sun, but by a new demanding rhythm. Feed the baby, check the wolf's wound, clean the baby, change the wolf's dressing. A fragile domesticity settles over the outpost, bizarre and yet strangely natural. She names the baby Leo. It means lion. It feels right. For a child who arrived with such a fierce guardian, he is a remarkably easy baby. He rarely cries, his dark blue eyes tracking her movements with that same unnerving intelligence. He drinks the rehydration fluid, and later, a thin gruel she makes from ground oats, without complaint. It's as if he understands their situation is precarious. The wolf, she simply calls Wolf. He remains on the floor where she treated him, rarely moving except to drink the water she places near his head. He is healing at a rate that defies biology. On the second day, when she changes his dressing, the angry redness around the stitches is already gone. The swelling has reduced dramatically. By the fourth day, the edges of the wound, which should be barely knitting together, look as if they have been healing for weeks. It's impossible. She's a scientist. She believes in data, in observable phenomena, in the laws of nature. What she is seeing breaks all the rules. There is nothing in her textbooks that can explain this accelerated regeneration. But despite the impossibility, she accepts it. She has already accepted a baby on her doorstep in the middle of a sandstorm delivered by a wolf. A little magical healing doesn't seem so far-fetched anymore. A strange sort of communication develops between her and the wolf. He cannot speak, obviously, but he listens. Oh, he listens. In the quiet afternoons, while Leo naps, she finds herself talking to him. At first, it's just practical things. Your wound looks better today, or I need to change your water. But the silence in the room invites more. The wolf's steady, patient presence is a strange sort of permission. His amber eyes, fixed on her, are like deep, still pools. She feels she can pour her own brokenness into them, and they will not overflow. So she does. His name was Mark, she says one afternoon, her voice quiet and rough. The wolf's ears prick forward. He told me he loved me. For 7 years he told me that, and I was stupid enough to believe him. She traces the rim of her cold teacup. Then the doctor said what they said. They called it a hostile, uterine environment. Isn't that a horrible phrase? Like I was at war with myself. She laughs, a short, bitter sound. Mark didn't see it as a war. He saw it as a broken product. He was so calm. He said he needed a legacy. He said it wasn't personal. Can you imagine? He erased 7 years of us and said it wasn't personal. She looks at the wolf. His gaze is soft, filled with a deep, sorrowful understanding that makes her throat ache. There is no judgment in his eyes, no pity, just a shared sense of pain. He made me feel like refuse, like something to be thrown away because it didn't work properly. Her voice cracks. She hasn't said these words aloud to anyone. She has barely allowed herself to think them. I came out here to prove I could be alone, that I didn't need anyone, that I could be as empty as he said I was. The wolf makes a low sound in his throat, a soft rumble. He lifts his great head and nudges her hand where it rests on her knee. His nose is cold and damp. The touch is shockingly gentle. It is not a demand for affection. It is a gesture of comfort. A single tear escapes and rolls down her cheek. She doesn't wipe it away. "And then you showed up," she whispers, stroking the coarse fur on his head. "You and Leo. And you needed me. You didn't care if I was broken. You just needed me." He leans into her touch, a silent, solid confirmation. In that moment, the fear she has carried for so long begins to loosen its grip. It is replaced by something else, a strange, tentative sense of belonging. Here, in this impossible situation, with a magical baby and a miraculously healing wolf, she is not a deficit. She is a necessity. She is a caregiver. She is a protector. The connection deepens. She finds herself sitting on the floor next to him for hours, reading her botany books aloud, her voice a low murmur. He seems to enjoy the sound. He watches her, his tail giving a slow, soft thump against the tiles when she reads a particularly interesting passage. One evening, she falls asleep in the chair, exhausted. She wakes with a start in the deep of the night, cold and stiff. She looks over. The wolf has dragged his great body closer. A corner of the thermal blanket she'd laid over him is now covering her legs. Her heart stops. He couldn't have. He's too weak. His wound. But the blanket is there, a deliberate act of care. She stares at him in the dim light filtering through the window. His eyes are closed, but she knows he is not asleep. He is aware of her. He is watching over her, just as she is watching over him. Fear has been her constant companion for so long, a cold shadow at her back. But now, Sitting here in the quiet dark, with this impossible animal, she feels safe. Safer than she ever felt with Mark. Safer than she has felt in years. She reaches out, her hand hesitant. She has touched him, to treat him, to give him water. But this is different. This is not clinical. She lays her palm flat against the thick, warm fur of his neck. He doesn't move. He just breathes. A slow, deep rhythm that seems to sync with her own. A current of warmth flows from him into her. A quiet energy that soothes the frantic, jagged edges of her soul. She closes her eyes and leans her head back, her hand still resting on his fur. For the first time since she arrived in this desert, the silence is not full of ghosts. It is full of a quiet, steady presence. It feels like peace. A week passes, a fragile, surreal bubble of domesticity. Alara, Leo, and the wolf. Her world has shrunk to the four walls of the outpost, and yet it feels larger than it ever has before. The wolf is almost completely healed. The scar on his side is a thin silver line, already fading into his thick coat. He can move now, rising with a quiet grace that belies his size. He follows her from room to room, a silent, watchful shadow. He lies at her feet, while she works at her computer, a warm, solid presence. He sits sentinel by Leo's makeshift crib, while the baby sleeps. The three of them have become a strange, interdependent pack. Leo provides the purpose. The wolf provides a silent, powerful sense of security. And Alara. Alara is the heart, the caregiver, the one who holds them all together. She no longer questions the impossible nature of it all. She simply accepts. Then, the bubble shatters. It's late afternoon. The sun is a merciless white disk in the sky. A plume of dust on the horizon catches her eye. It's not a dust devil. It's a vehicle, coming fast. Ice floods her veins. No one comes out here. No one. Her supply drops are made at a designated point 20 miles away. She has no scheduled visitors, which means whoever this is not supposed to be here. The wolf is at her side in an instant, a low growl vibrating in his chest. He has seen it too. His body is tense, coiled, every line of him radiating a dangerous alertness. "It's okay," she says, her own voice tight with anxiety. She puts a hand on his back to soothe him, but it's more for her own benefit. It's probably just a lost tourist, or park rangers. But she doesn't believe it. A cold dread pools in her stomach. She knows who it is. She knows it with a sickening certainty. The sleek silver SUV, obscenely clean and out of place in the rugged landscape, pulls to a stop a few yards from her door. The engine cuts, and the sudden silence is deafening. The driver's side door opens. Mark. He steps out, dressed in expensive, tailored linen that is already starting to wilt in the oppressive heat. He shields his eyes with a manicured hand, a look of distaste on his face as he surveys her small outpost. "Ilara!" he calls out, his voice carrying the same note of strained bonhomie he always used when he was about to get his way. "I have to say, you really committed to the whole hermit thing. It's very rustic." Her heart hammers against her ribs. How did he find her? She had been so careful. The wolf's growl deepens, becoming a menacing, guttural threat. His hackles are raised. "Shh," she whispers, her hand tightening in his fur. "Stay. Please, stay. She needs to handle this. She needs to show him he has no power over her anymore." She steps outside, closing the door firmly behind her, shutting the wolf and Leo inside. She needs to protect them from him, from the contamination of his presence. "What are you doing here, Mark?" she asks, her voice colder and steadier than she feels. He gives her a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, a predator's smile. "I was worried about you. Out here all alone. It's not healthy. I found your research grant proposal. It wasn't that hard." Of course. He always had to be the smartest person in the room. "I'm not alone," she says, the words tasting like truth. He laughs, a condescending sound. "Right. You and your cacti. Listen, Laura, this has gone on long enough. I've been thinking. Maybe I was too hasty. We had a good thing. We can work on you know, the issue. There are other options. Surrogates, adoption. Her blood runs cold. He's not here to apologize. He's here to reacquire a possession. He'd run his calculations, weighed his options, and decided that taking her back was easier than finding someone new. No, she says, the word a stone in the hot air. His smile falters. No? Elara, be reasonable. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. This place is a wasteland. You're wasting your life pining away out here. I'm not pining, she says, a new strength flowing into her. It's the wolf's strength, she thinks, his unwavering certainty. I'm living, and my life is no longer any of your business. You need to leave. He takes a step closer, his expression shifting from condescension to irritation. Don't be childish. I drove for 6 hours to come and get you. You're coming back with me. No, I'm not. He lunges then, faster than she expects. His hand clamps around her wrist, his fingers digging in, hard, the familiar grip of ownership, the grip she thought she had escaped. We are done discussing this, he hisses, his face close to hers, the mask of civility gone completely. Pain shoots up her arm. Panic, cold and familiar, claws at her throat. She is right back where she started, weak, overpowered. But she is not the same woman he discarded. The door to the outpost explodes outward. It's not an explosion of wood, but of pure kinetic force. The wolf bursts out of the doorway. He is no longer the patient invalid, the quiet companion. He is a primal force of nature, a blur of sand-colored fur and righteous fury. His roar is not a bark or a howl. It is a sound ripped from the very throat of the wilderness, a sound of absolute, lethal rage. Mark freezes, his eyes wide with disbelief and terror. He has just enough time to let go of her wrist and stumble back a step before the wolf is on him. It happens in a terrifying, beautiful instant. The wolf doesn't bite him, doesn't tear at him. It's a show of force, a calculated display of overwhelming power. He hits Mark's chest with his shoulder, a solid, immovable object meeting a fragile one. Mark flies backward as if he's been hit by a car, landing in a heap on the ground 10 feet away. The air is knocked out of him in a whoosh. He scrambles backward in the dirt, his face a mask of pure, abject fear. The wolf stands over her, a guardian, a shield. He places himself between her and the threat, his body a living wall. He doesn't look at her. His entire being is focused on the man on the ground, a low, constant growl rumbling in his chest like an earthquake. But something is wrong. The wolf stumbles. He lets out a sharp cry of pain. He looks down at his side. The impact, the violent exertion, has torn the wound open again. The silver scar is gone, replaced by a fresh, gaping tear. Dark blood begins to well, staining his fur a deep, horrifying crimson. He's protected her, and in doing so, he has destroyed himself. He wavers, his strong legs trembling. He looks back at her, his amber eyes filled with a sudden, devastating vulnerability, an apology. Then he collapses. He falls to the sand in a heavy, boneless heap. A shudder runs through his massive frame, and then he is still. No, Elara breathes, the word a strangled whisper. No, 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 no. Time seems to stop. The world narrows to the fallen body of the wolf, the spreading pool of blood in the sand, and the wheezing, terrified gasps of the man she once thought she loved. Mark scrambles to his feet, his face pale. What the hell is that thing? It's a monster! He points a shaking finger at the still form. A monster. He calls him a monster. The being who defended her, who sacrificed himself for her. Something inside Elara snaps, the last vestiges of fear, of hesitation, of the victim she used to be, are burned away in a white-hot flash of rage and love. She doesn't even think. She moves. She throws herself to the ground, covering the wolf's body with her own. She shields his head with her arms, presses her face into his fur, making herself a barrier between him and the world, between him and Mark. "Get away from him," she snarls, her voice unrecognizable, feral. "Don't you touch him!" Mark stares at her, his mouth agape, at the woman cowering in the dirt, cradling the head of a giant bleeding wolf. His expression shifts from fear to utter revulsion. "You're insane," he spits. "You've lost your mind. Fine. Stay here. Rot in this hellhole with your pet." He stumbles back to his car, never taking his eyes off her, as if she is the unpredictable threat now. He gets in, fumbling with the keys. The engine roars to life. The SUV kicks up a cloud of dust as he speeds away, a silver glint of cowardice disappearing into the heat haze. He is gone, but Alara barely registers it. All that matters is the body beneath her, the life that is fading away. "Please," she sobs, her tears soaking into his fur. "Please don't leave me. You can't leave me." She is shielding him, a reciprocal sacrifice. She, who has always been the one in need of protection, is now the protector. It is a profound, fundamental shift in the landscape of her soul. And as she holds him, something begins to happen. A light. It starts as a faint glow, emanating from the wolf's body, from beneath her own. It's a soft, golden light, warm against her skin. It grows brighter, stronger, pulsing with a gentle, rhythmic beat, like a heart. She pulls back, confused, her tears blurring her vision. The light is pouring from his wound, but it is not a light of injury. It is a light of creation. It seals the torn flesh, cauterizing, mending, knitting him back together right before her eyes. But it doesn't stop there. The light engulfs him completely, a blinding, beautiful cocoon of pure energy. It is warm, and it smells of ozone and sagebrush, and something ancient, something she has no name for. She can feel the change happening within the light, a shifting of bone, a reshaping of form. The coarse fur beneath her hand softens, becomes something else. The powerful muzzle elongates and flattens. The entire structure of the being she holds is rearranging. The light pulses one last time, a brilliant, silent flash, and then it recedes, sinking back into him, leaving after images dancing behind her eyes. And the wolf is gone. In his place, lying on the sand, is a man. He is naked, his body long and leanly muscled, built with the same graceful power as the wolf. His skin is tanned, his hair, the dark, wild color of the desert at midnight. The wound on his side is gone, leaving only smooth, unbroken skin. He stirs, groaning, his head rolling to the side, and he opens his eyes. They are the same eyes, the same intelligent, intense, soul-deep amber eyes that have watched her, comforted her, and trusted her for the past week. Ilara can't breathe. She can't think. Her mind is a white void of pure, undiluted shock. She is kneeling on the ground, her hands hovering over the bare chest of a man who, moments before, was a wolf. The wolf she saved. The wolf who saved her. He looks at her, and his expression is one of profound, agonizing pain. Not physical pain, something deeper, something that mirrors the grief she saw in his eyes when he first collapsed at her door. His lips part, his voice, when it comes, is a raw, hoarse whisper, rough with disuse, but deep and resonant, a voice that seems to vibrate right through her. Ilara. He knows her name. He says her name like a prayer, like a curse, like the answer to a question he's been asking his entire life. And the world, which had already tilted, finally shatters into a million glittering, impossible pieces. The silence that follows is absolute. The desert holds its breath. Ilara kneels, frozen, her mind struggling to build a bridge between the impossible reality before her and the world she thought she knew. The mantha wolf lies on the sand, his amber eyes locked on hers, filled with a universe of emotions she can't begin to decipher. Shame, relief, terror, longing. Her scientific mind, the part of her that demands logic and reason, is screaming. It's a trick, a hallucination, shock. But her body, her heart, knows the truth. The solid warmth of the ground beneath her knees is real. The scent of sage and man and ozone is real. Those eyes are real. He tries to sit up, his muscles bunching, but a wave of dizziness makes him grimace and fall back. He is weak. The transformation, whatever it was, has taken a terrible toll. Her instincts, the caregiver's instincts he helped awaken in her, override her shock. He is vulnerable. He is hurt, in a way she can't see. He needs help. She scrambles to her feet, her movements jerky. "Stay there," she says, her voice a thin, reedy thing. She runs inside, her mind a blank slate. What does one do when a wolf turns into a man on their doorstep? There is no protocol for this. Blanket. She grabs the thermal blanket from the floor. Water. She fills a glass, her hand shaking so badly that water sloshes over the side. When she comes back out, he has managed to push himself into a sitting position, his back against the wall of the outpost. He has his head in his hands, his dark hair falling forward, obscuring his face. He looks utterly defeated. She approaches slowly, cautiously, as if he might vanish if she moves too quickly. She stops in front of him and holds out the blanket. He looks up, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion and something that looks like shame. He takes the blanket, his fingers brushing against hers. A jolt, like a static shock, arcs between them. It's startling, and warm, and real. He wraps the blanket around his waist, covering himself. "Thank you," he murmurs, his voice still rough. She offers the glass of water. He takes it, his hand unsteady, and drinks it down in 3 long swallows. He hands the empty glass back to her, their fingers brushing again, that same spark. She sinks to the ground, sitting cross-legged a few feet away from him, pulling her knees to her chest, a defensive posture. She needs a barrier. "Who? What are you?" she finally whispers, the question feeling ridiculously inadequate. He looks away, out at the vast, indifferent expanse of the desert. "My name is Kael." Kael. The name suits him. It sounds like stone and wind. "I am what you saw." He gestures vaguely with his hand. "A lichen. A shifter." A shifter. A werewolf. The words belong in cheap novels and horror movies, not in her sun-bleached, rational world. But the evidence is lying on the ground in front of her, wrapped in a thermal blanket. "The baby," she says, her mind latching onto the one solid piece of this insanity. "Leo, is he?" "He is my nephew," Kael says, his voice softening with affection. "My sister's son. He is like me. Our future." It all starts to click into place. A terrible, unbelievable puzzle. You were running from something. You were injured. He nods, his jaw tight. "Rival packs. Old enemies who want to see my line ended. They ambushed us. I killed them, but not before. Not before they wounded me. I was dying. My wolf form couldn't heal fast enough. I knew I couldn't shift back. The effort would have killed me." He finally turns to look at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes is like a physical blow. I could feel my strength fading. All I could think about was Leo. I had to get him somewhere safe. And then I scented you. "You scented me?" "It's a lichen thing. We can smell emotions, fear, anger, happiness. But you smelled of loneliness and grief. A deep, profound grief that called to something inside me. And underneath it all, compassion. A strength you didn't even know you had. Your scent was a beacon in the dark, a light. I didn't know what I would find. I just knew I had to get to you." He dragged himself and his nephew across the desert, bleeding and dying, following the scent of her broken heart. The thought is so overwhelming, she feels lightheaded. "So you collapsed on my doorstep," she says, piecing it together. "And you let me stitch you up. You trusted me." "I had no choice." he says softly. And yet, it did not feel like a lack of choice. It felt right. Watching you, hearing you, I knew I had brought Leo to the right place. He looks down at his hands. But I never meant for you to see this. I was going to wait until I was strong enough to leave, to take Leo and disappear. You were never supposed to be part of this danger. A silence stretches between them, thick with unspoken things. The danger he speaks of feels distant, unreal. The only danger that feels present is the overwhelming pull she feels toward him, a force far more potent and terrifying than any rival pack of werewolves. And then that man came, Kale says, his voice turning hard, the growl from the wolf creeping back into his tone. He hurt you. I felt it through the door. Your fear, your pain. I couldn't stay inside. My control shattered. You saved me, she whispers, and put you in more danger than you were ever in with him. He counters, his voice laced with self-loathing. Alara, you don't understand. My world is violent. It is blood and instinct and war. It is no place for a human. He is pushing her away, trying to scare her, trying to protect her from himself. The same way she tried to protect herself from the world by running to the desert. And now, he continues, his voice breaking slightly, the final truth, the reason the pull was so strong, the reason your compassion could heal me in a way my own body couldn't. He looks at her, and his amber eyes are pleading, begging her to understand, or perhaps to run. Among my kind, there is a legend, a truth, a bond that is rarer than a desert rain, a fated connection to one soul, a mate that completes us, makes us whole. We call them our anima, our soul. Her breath catches in her throat. I felt it the moment I saw you, he says, his voice dropping to a raw, vulnerable whisper. The recognition, the rightness, it was agony, lying there on your floor, a wolf, unable to speak, to tell you, unable to touch you as a man. Ilara, he says, and her name is a lifetime of longing packed into a single word. You are my anima, my destined mate. The confession hangs in the air between them, shimmering like heat haze. Destined mate, anima, and soul. The words are from a fairy tale, a myth. But the look on his face, the absolute unwavering conviction in his eyes, is the most real thing she has ever seen. All the strange feelings of the past week suddenly snap into focus. The impossible sense of safety she felt with the wolf, the bizarre comfort in his presence. The way her body and soul seemed to quiet when he was near, the spark when their skin touched. It wasn't just gratitude or Stockholm Syndrome. It was this ancient, unbelievable connection. Kale sees the struggle on her face, the war between disbelief and a dawning, terrifying acceptance. He mistakes it for fear, for rejection. His face closes off, the vulnerability replaced by a mask of grim resolve. He gets to his feet, swaying slightly, but forcing himself to stand tall. I have told you the truth, he says, his voice now flat, devoid of emotion. It's a worse sound than his anger. I have endangered you, shamed you with my presence. I will not burden you further. I will take Leo, and we will go. You can forget this ever happened. Go back to your quiet life. He turns to go back into the house, presumably to get the baby, to leave her, to walk out of her life, and leave her alone in the silence again. And she realizes, with a clarity that cuts through all the shock and confusion, that the silence he would leave behind would be 1,000 times more unbearable than the silence she came here to find. It would not be an absence of noise. It would be an absence of him. No, she says. He stops, his back to her. No, he repeats, not turning around. No, she says again, stronger this time. She gets to her feet, the sand rough beneath her bare feet. You don't get to do that. You don't get to crash into my life. Turn it completely upside down. Tell me I'm your soul, and then just walk away, because you've decided what's best for me. He turned slowly, his face a battleground of conflicting emotions. I am trying to protect you. And what if I don't want to be protected? She challenges, taking a step closer. Her fear is gone, replaced by a fierce, unfamiliar fire. What if I'm tired of being protected? What if I'm tired of being alone? You think your world is so much more monstrous than mine? The monster in my life wore a tailored suit and smiled while he told me I was worthless. He didn't have claws and fangs, Kale. He had polite, reasonable words that cut deeper than any knife. She is standing right in front of him now, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. She has to tilt her head back to look him in the eye. You, she says, her voice dropping, becoming thick with an emotion she can't name, are the first person, the first being, who has ever made me feel safe. You, in your monstrous wolf form, bleeding on my floor, made me feel safer than I have in my entire life. So don't you dare tell me you're a danger to me. The only danger here is you leaving. His resolve is crumbling. His carefully constructed walls are cracking under the force of her conviction. His amber eyes are wide, luminous with unshed tears. From inside the outpost, a small sound carries on the still air. A soft cry. Leo is awake. The sound breaks the spell. It's a reminder of the third member of their strange little pack, the innocent life that brought them together. Kale's gaze flickers toward the door, then back to her. A look of pure agony crosses his face. I have longed for a family, for a mate, for my anima, my whole life. It is the core of what we are. To find you, and to know that being with me will only bring you pain and danger, it is a torment I cannot describe. Then don't be with you, she says softly. Be with us. She reaches out, her hand trembling, and places it flat on his chest, right over his heart. She can feel the frantic, powerful beat beneath her palm. It feels like coming home. I was so empty, Kale, she whispers, her own tears finally falling, hot and fast. An empty house, an empty life, an empty womb. I came here to match my insides, and you filled my house. You filled my life. You brought me a child to care for. You made me whole. Not him, you. A single tear escapes his eye and traces a path through the dust on his cheek. He covers her hand with his own, his large, warm hand engulfing hers. The connection is electric, a closed circuit of shared pain and burgeoning hope. Elara, he breathes, his voice thick with 1,000 years of loneliness. He lowers his head, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She doesn't. She can't. She leans into him, rising on her toes, meeting him halfway. His lips meet hers. It is not a gentle kiss. It is a collision. It is the relief of a lifelong drought finally breaking. It is desperate and hungry and raw, with all the unsaid words, all the unspoken longing of the past week, of a lifetime. It is the taste of salt from their tears, the heat of the desert sun, the scent of his skin. It is a confirmation, a promise, a sealing of a bond that was forged in desperation and tempered in compassion. In that kiss, she is not broken. He is not a monster. They are just two souls who were lost, and who have, against all odds, found their way home. 6 months later, the world is no longer just white-hot sun and pale sand. It is the deep, rich red of the hidden canyons where Kale's pack makes their home. It is the startling green of the cottonwoods that grow near the secret spring that feeds their enclave. It is the deep, star-dusted blue of the night sky, unfiltered by city lights. Alara's life is no longer silent. It is filled with the rumble of Kale's voice, the happy shrieks of a toddling Leo, and the quiet, respectful greetings of the pack. They call her Anima Elara. At first, the title was strange, but she has come to understand what it means to them. She is not just their alpha's mate. She is a symbol. Her compassion, the human trait that drew a dying Kale to her, is revered. In a world governed by strength and instinct, her quiet, fierce kindness is seen as a different, more powerful kind of strength. She stands on a rocky overlook, a cool evening breeze playing with her hair. Kale comes up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. He is in his human form, warm and solid and real. The comfort of his presence is a constant, steady anchor in her life. "What are you thinking about?" he murmurs, his lips against her temple. "About Mark," she says, "and the name has no power anymore. It's just a word. I was just thinking. I wonder what he would think if he could see me now." As if summoned by the thought, a flicker of movement far below catches her eye. A familiar silver SUV is parked on the dusty public road that runs along the edge of the pack's territory. Two figures stand beside it, looking up at the canyons with binoculars. One is Mark, the other is a uniformed sheriff. A year ago, the sight would have sent her into a spiral of panic. Now, she just feels a faint, distant pity. Cale tenses behind her. "I will send them away," he growls softly. "No," she says, putting a hand over his. "Let me." He looks down at her, a question in his amber eyes. He nods, a gesture of complete trust. She walks down the hidden path, Cale following a discreet distance behind. A silent guardian she knows is there without looking. She emerges from the rocks onto the dusty road. Mark sees her and his face registers shock, then a smug sort of vindication. "Alara, thank God. I told the sheriff you'd been kidnapped by some cult." The sheriff, a weary-looking man with a kind face, looks from Mark to her. "Ma'am, are you here of your own free will?" Alara smiles, a calm, genuine smile. "I am, Sheriff. Thank you for your concern. This man," she gestures to Mark, "is my ex-fiancé. He has a hard time accepting that." "I was worried," Mark protests, his voice high and indignant. "You're living out here with those people." Just then, Leo, who had been playing with some of the pack children nearby, comes toddling out from behind a rock. He sees Alara, and his face lights up. "Mama!" he calls out, his little legs pumping as he runs to her. Alara scoops him into her arms, kissing his chubby cheek. He wraps his arms tightly around her neck. The word, "Mama," echoes in the quiet air, a word she never thought she would hear. A word that is now the sweetest sound in the world. Mark stares at the child, at the easy affection between them. His face goes slack, his carefully constructed narrative of her pining away in lonely isolation crumbling to dust. Cale chooses that moment to appear. He walks out of the shadows of the canyon, not as a wolf, but as the alpha. He is tall and powerful, radiating an authority that has nothing to do with wealth or status. He comes to stand beside Alara, placing a proprietary hand on the small of her back. He looks at Mark, and his amber eyes are flat and cold as stone. He says nothing. He doesn't have to. The sheriff takes in the scene. The confident, serene woman, the happy child in her arms, the fiercely protective man at her side. It is a portrait of a family, whole, strong, and content. He turns to Mark. "I think the lady is fine, sir. I suggest you get in your car and head back to the city. There's nothing for you here." Defeated, humiliated, Mark gets back in his car. He gives Alara one last look, a look of utter bewilderment. He is seeing a woman he doesn't recognize, a woman who is not broken, a woman who did not need him to be complete. He drives away, leaving nothing behind but a fading cloud of dust. Alara leans back against Cale, Leo snuggled between them. She watches the car disappear. The past is finally gone. Later, as twilight settles over the canyons, they sit together on the overlook, the three of them. Leo is asleep in her lap, his small hand curled around her finger, the crescent moon birthmark, a familiar, beloved sight. Alara looks out at the vast, beautiful desert that she had once seen as a mirror for her own emptiness. She had come here seeking solace in desolation, believing she was barren, a failure. But the desert was never barren. It was just waiting for the right conditions to bloom. And so was she. The thing she thought was her greatest weakness, her greatest flaw, the infertility that had cast her out, had become the source of her deepest strength. It had hollowed her out, yes, but it had made room. Room for a lost child. Room for a dying wolf. Room for a love so vast and wild, it could fill the entire desert. Her wound had not been a curse. It had been an invitation. It had been the start of her real story. Kyle kisses her, a soft, lingering kiss, full of love and gratitude, and a future that stretches out before them, as wide and promising as the star-filled sky. She is not alone. She is not rejected. She is home.